Tzaddikim said that the meaning of the word me'ayin is not from where like many things, but it means from ayin, from a place of nothingness. When a person comes to a matzav in his life where he feels like he's ayin and everything is eibishter, then from that place called ayin, me'ayin, yavo yezri, all the Yeshuas will come.
Have you got this album yet in your collection? Joey Newcomb, To Be a Yid, Me'ayin is that song. It's hard for me to turn off these songs when the class starts, but we got to get into it. This track date, Rosh Hashana, is just fantastic, isn't it? I mean, we had a lot of technical stuff at the front, and now day after day after day, just fascinating insights to what it was like to live in the times of the temple, just after the temple, our sages, forming policy to get the Jewish people in the groove, as it were, through our understanding of the calendar. And so it's no coincidence that this was the calendar was the first commandment given to the Jewish people as a nation. You shall observe this month as the first of months. We keep coming back to that Exodus 12:2. More good stuff today. Who is with us as we gather to do some beautiful learning on a Tuesday? Let's start with YouTube. Neil in Virginia, Lynn in North Texas, Aoife in Ocala. And over there on the Facebook side, Yehudit in Florence, South Carolina, James saying shalom from Indianapolis, Rochelle in Modesto, John in Maine, Lucy in Minnesota, Sharon in Lebanon, Heather in Kansas, Bill in Missouri, Diana in New York, Nancy, North Carolina, Paul in the Great Northwest, Chaim in Charlotte, John in Sedona, Stephen in New Hampshire, Christo in Lubbock, Barry in Indianapolis, Belle in Texas, Bella in Florida, Pauline in Arkansas, Lynn says shalom, George says, I hope you paid royalties. No, but we got permission. Joy loves the song. Where am I? Here we go. It's just skipping around on me. George in Canada. Another George in Pasadena. Welcome, everybody. We got a lot to cover. Today we're covering page 24 here in Tractate Rosh Hashana, the 9th volume of the Talmud. We're in chapter 2. Yesterday we did 2 days and we did 6 Mishnahs. We're staying on that pace. Today we'll be covering 3 more Mishnahs. We pick it up near the bottom of the B side of page 23 with Mishnah number 4 here in chapter 2. How do they examine the witnesses who come to testify about the new moon? They deal with them in order. As the pair of witnesses that arrives first, they examine first. They bring in the greater of the 2 witnesses and they say to him, say how you saw the moon. Was it in front of the sun or behind the sun, to its north or to its south? How high was the moon over the horizon, and in which direction did it tilt, and how wide was it? If, for example, the witness said he saw the moon in front of the sun, he has said nothing of substance, as this is impossible, and therefore he's either mistaken or lying. And after they finish hearing the first witness's testimony, they would bring in the second witness and examine him in a similar manner. And if their statements match, their testimony is accepted, and the court sanctifies the new moon, meaning the new month. And the court then asks all the other pairs of witnesses certain general matters without probing into all the details. They do this not because they require the additional testimony, but so that the witnesses should not leave disappointed, and so that the witnesses should be accustomed to coming to testify and will not hesitate to come the next time when they might be needed. That's the Mishnah. You see, we sanctify the new month according to the testimony of two witnesses. They're examined to make sure that the testimony matches, those two witnesses match each other, and that it accords with the natural phenomena of what should happen in the moon. Once that's been determined, they can sanctify the new month. But all these other witnesses who came, their testimony is not required, but the Sanhedrin respects them and thanks them for coming and makes them feel appreciated by asking them a few questions. The Gemara. The Gemara asks, in front of the sun is the same as to its north, and behind the sun is the same as to its south. Why would the court ask the witnesses both sets of questions? And Abaye said, the first question does not refer to the moon's position relative to the sun, but to the concave side of the moon, whether it was before the sun pointing toward it or behind the sun pointing away from it. If he said that it was before the sun, he has said nothing. Right? When they're testifying about the moon, what they're seeing is that sliver, that just a little bit of the rim of the moon is lit up. Right? The month changes on the new moon when there's nothing of the moon lit up, although you can see it in the sky, none of it is lit. Then that first sliver tells you, okay, the new month has begun. And that is what the witnesses have to testify to, but to make sure it's real, it has to accord with the way the moon looks at the various times of year for that month relative to the sun, etc. As Rabbi Yochanan said, what is the meaning of that which is written, Job 25:2, dominion and fear are with him. He makes peace in his high places. It means that the sun has never seen the concave side of the new moon, nor has it ever seen the concave side of a rainbow. So interesting. Both of which always face away from the sun. It has never seen the concave side of the moon, as the moon would be distressed by a sense of inadequacy if its concave side faced the sun. Therefore, the sun sees only the full roundness of the convex side. In this way, he makes peace in his high places between the sun and the moon. It's a beautiful poetic understanding of the physics of it, right? And we're going to do a lot, by the way. I forget which tractate it is. We're going to come to it in our journey. We're going to spend many pages on astronomy, the horoscope, the Jewish horoscope. The sages were very aware of the constellations when they appear in the year. The Jewish months, in a sense, are the signs of the zodiac, although they vary in time when exactly they hit. But the sages were very aware of the motion of the bodies, right? The moon, the planets, the stars, the constellations, the different times of year, the seasons, how it all comes together. And then they attach these kind of poetic meanings, right? That the moon would be distressed if its backside was viewed by the sun. Why is the moon lit up on any night? Because the sun, which is below the horizon, still is able to cast its light at the moon, which reflects back to us. When do we see the moon? In the beginning of the night, at the end of the night, depends where its cycle it is. And they have a good, firm grasp of all those heavenly positions of the bodies. Furthermore, the sun has never seen the concave side of a rainbow, so that the worshippers of the sun will not say, as though the sun is a god, that the sun is shooting arrows at those who deny its divinity, using the rainbow as its bow. The concave side of the rainbow always faces away from the sun so that it does not look like a bow held by the sun. Of course, physics of that absolutely line up. What is the rainbow? It's caused by the sunlight coming through the moisture in the atmosphere. The Mishnah taught that the examination of the witnesses included the following questions. How high was the moon? How high was the moon over the horizon? And in which direction did it tilt? It was taught in one baraisa, if the witness testifies that he saw the moon to the north of the sun, his statement is valid. However, if he says that he saw it to the south, he has not said anything of significance, as this is impossible. And the Gemara asks, isn't the opposite taught in a different baraisa? If he testifies he saw the moon to the south of the sun, his statement is valid. However, if he says he saw it to the north, he has not said anything. How do we reconcile these two statements? And the Gemara answers, La kasha, it is not difficult. Here in the second baraisa mentioned above, it is referring to the summer, when the moon is to the south of the sun. Therefore, the first baraisa mentioned above, it is referring to the rainy season, the winter, when the moon is to the north of the sun. And the sages taught in a baraisa. Nina, if you can hear me, please bring me a glass of water. I find my mouth is very dry. The sages taught in a baraisa, if one witness says that he saw the moon, if one witness says that he saw the moon 2 plow handles high above the horizon, and the other one says it was 3 plow handles high, their testimony is valid, as small discrepancies of this kind is reasonable. However, if one says that he saw the moon 3 plow handles above the horizon, and the other one says it was 5 plow handles high, their testimony is void, as that discrepancy is unacceptable. However, this does not mean that the witnesses themselves are disqualified, as either of them may join with another testimony, i.e., he may combine his account with that of another witness who testifies likewise. Thank you so much. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol nihi b'dvaro. Okay. And so what are they talking about? Plow handles high. I don't have the exact sense of it, but you can imagine that, part of being a witness was telling how high is the moon above the horizon? How do you measure that? Okay, so like some kind of a length that they're familiar with, a plow handle, and you could think how many you'd need to stack up. Obviously, that depends on your vantage point. Can you see an even horizon? How far are you standing from the plow handle? How tall are you? There's going to be a lot of variables that are going to get involved in that. But they had some kind of a standardized practice for understanding how you look at the moon relative to the horizon, much as mariners would have that kind of understanding with their sextants. It's not going to be as technical as that, but they had a way of measuring how high is the moon above the horizon. Right. And the sages taught in another baraisa that if the witnesses say, we did not actually see the moon, but we saw it reflected in the water, or we saw it reflected in a glass lantern, or we saw it through thin clouds, they may not testify about it, as only a direct sighting of the moon is acceptable. If they say we saw half of the moon's reflection in the water, or we saw half of it through the clouds, or we saw half of it in a lantern, they still may not testify about it. The whole moon must be seen with their eye, not through glass, not reflected in water, not through wispy clouds. And the Gemara analyzes this baraisa. Now, if when one sees the entire moon in this manner, you said that this is not valid testimony, is it necessary to teach that one may not testify when he sees only half of it? Rather, this is what the baraisa is teaching. If the witnesses saw half of the moon's reflection of the water and half of it directly in the sky, or half of it through the clouds and half of it in the sky, or half of it in a lantern and half of it in the sky, although they saw half of the moon directly with their eye, they still may not testify about it until they see the entire moon in the sky. The sages taught in another baraisa that if the witnesses say, one moment we saw the new moon, but we did not see it again, they may not testify about it. And the Gemara asks, must they go on watching it to such an extent? I.e., why should they have to see it for a long period of time? And Abaye said, this is what the baraisa is saying. if the witnesses say, we saw the moon on our own accord, i.e. by chance, without looking for it, and then we returned to look for it on purpose, to deliver precise testimony about it, but we did not see it again, they may not testify about it. What is the reason? Because one can say that the first time it was merely a small round white cloud that they saw, which they mistook for the moon, and that is why when they looked for it again, they could not find it. Right? So these witnesses, they have to be out there for the purpose of seeing it clearly so that they can testify about it. They can't be accidental witnesses. I suppose they could be out there and realize, hey, you know what? There's the moon and we could testify about it. They're accidental in the beginning, but then they have to become intentional witnesses and really get a good look and understand what they're seeing and remember it so they'll be able to testify about it, not just a glance when they weren't prepared for it. That's the discussion of Mishnah number 4. Now, Mishnah number 5. After the witnesses have been examined and their testimony accepted, the head of the court says, it is sanctified. And all the people respond after him, it is sanctified, it is sanctified. And whether the moon was seen at its anticipated time on the 30th day of the previous month, or whether it was not seen at its anticipated time, in which case witnesses are not necessary to establish, the following day is the new moon, right? If we see the moon, the witnesses see the moon on the 30th day of the previous month, and they testify about it, so then the sages, the Sanhedrin sanctify the new month, meaning the previous month was 29 days long, and now we start a new month. If they didn't see the moon, or the sages didn't hear testimony for some reason, then that outgoing month will be 30 days long, and the new month will automatically begin on the 31st day of that month. Now it's going to be the new month because lunar months are either 29 days or 30 days long. There's no other choice. And that's why witnesses are not necessary to establish that it's going to begin after a 30-day month. And then the court sanctifies it and formally proclaims the day as the new moon. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Tzadok, says if the new moon was not seen at its anticipated time, right, on the 30th day, the court does not sanctify the new moon on the following day, as the celestial court in heaven has already sanctified it, precluding the need for the additional sanctification by the earthly court, right? When the Sanhedrin hears the witnesses testify they saw the moon, right, on the 30th day, they sanctify the new month, as we were instructed to do in the Torah. If they don't hear witness testimony on that day, then we all know that it's going to be the following day, the 31st day is going to be Rosh Chodesh, the new month, and according to Rabbi Tzadok, so then since it's automatic, why is the court going to state we sanctified the new month? The heavenly court has already sanctified the new month, but that's the minority opinion. The anonymous majority opinion says they do sanctify even on the 31st day. The Gemara on Mishnah number 5. The Mishnah teaches that the head of the court says it is sanctified. And the Gemara asks, from where are these matters that the court must sanctify the new moon derived? And Rabbi Chia bar Gamda said that Rabbi Yosef ben Shaul said that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said that the verse states, Leviticus 23:44, and Moses declared to the children of Israel the appointed seasons of the Lord. From here it is derived that the head of the court says it is sanctified, as it is evident from the verse that Moses, whose status was equivalent to the head of the great Sanhedrin, declared the appointed times of the festivals and new moons in a formal manner. The Mishnah further teaches that after the head of the court says it is sanctified, all the people respond after him, it is sanctified, it is sanctified. They don't say amen. They say, they repeat, it is sanctified, and then say it again, it is sanctified. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive this? And Rav Papa said that the verse states, Leviticus 23:2, which you shall proclaim them, otam, to be sacred convocations. Instead of otam, read into the verse you, atem, as though the verse stated, which you shall proclaim you. This superfluous word, you, teaches that the month must be proclaimed not only by the head of the court, but also by you, the people. Rav Nachman bar Yitzhak said that it is derived from the phrase, these are my appointed seasons. The term hem can also mean they, which indicates that they, the people, should likewise say and announce my, God's appointed seasons. And the Gemara further asks, why do I need the people to declare it is sanctified? It is sanctified. Why do we need the people to say it twice? And the Gemara answers that the reason is that it is written, sacred convocations, Leviticus 23:2, in the plural, which indicates that they must announce it twice. The Mishnah taught that Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Tzadok, says, if the new moon was not seen at its anticipated time, the court does not sanctify the new moon on the following day. And the Gemara cites other opinions in this regard. It is taught in a Baraisa that the sage Palaimo says, if the new moon was seen at its anticipated time, the court does not sanctify the new moon, as the new moon appeared as expected and there's no need for any special sanctification. However, if the new moon was seen not at its anticipated time, meaning not on the 29th day, but on the 30th day, then the court must sanctify the new moon. That's the exact opposite of what our Mishnah teaches. And the Baraisa continues, Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, says, in either case, the court does not sanctify the new moon formally, as it is stated, and you shall sanctify the 50th year, Leviticus 25:10. That's about the Jubilee year, from which it is derived. You must formally sanctify years in court, but you do not have to formally sanctify months, as they are sanctified automatically by heaven. Rather, it is enough merely to announce to the public that a certain day was established as the new moon. Rabbi Yehuda said that Shmuel said the halacha, the law, is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Tzadok, that if the new moon was seen at its anticipated time, the court sanctifies the new month. However, if it was not seen at its anticipated time, they do not sanctify it. Abaye said, we too learn in the Mishnah, if the court and all the Jewish people saw the new moon, and the witnesses were interrogated, but the court did not manage to say sanctified before nightfall, the previous month is rendered a full 30-day month. And this indicates that full, yes, i.e. in this case, it is necessary to extend the previous month. However, sanctified, no, there is no need to formally sanctify the month, as the new moon does not occur on its anticipated date in this case. The Gemara rejects this argument. There is no proof from here, as it was necessary for the Mishnah to mention that the month is rendered a full 30-day month, and the reason is that it might enter your mind to say that since the court and the entire Jewish people saw the new moon, it has become public knowledge, and therefore there's no need to render the previous month a full 30-day month. Consequently, the Mishnah teaches us that even in this case, the previous month must be extended. Nevertheless, it is still possible that the new moon must be formally sanctified on the following day. So it's interesting, even if the moon did come on the 29th day, and there were witnesses, and they testified, but for some reason, something interrupted the procedure, and the head of the Sanhedrin did not say, it is sanctified, then the new month does not begin on the 30th day. They're going to render it a full month, a 30-day month, and the new month will begin on the 31st day. So that's how you see that, the court really is God's partner in establishing the seasons, the dates, the calendar. The halacha, the law on this, even if the court and the entire Jewish people saw the moon, if they did not have time to say it is sanctified before nightfall of the 30th, they do not sanctify the new moon on that day. And they sanctify only on its time. What is the law? The court sanctifies the new moon only when the moon is seen at its proper time, i.e. on the night of the 30th day. However, if it was not seen until the end of the 30th day, the court does not sanctify it in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Tzadok. So that's the law, right? If they would hear the testimony that it's going to be a short month, 29-day month, and the new month is going to begin on the 30th day, the court sanctifies. If the moon comes late and it's going to be a 30-day month and the new month is going to begin on the 31st day, they don't sanctify, the heavenly court sanctified. Mishnah number 6. Rabban Gamliel had a diagram of the different forms of the moon drawn on a tablet that hung on the wall of his attic, which he would show to the laymen who came to testify about the new moon, but were unable to describe adequately what they had seen. And he would say to them, did you see a form like this or like this? This is almost like the witness lineup, right? Like some people have the visual sense, they can see a person and then describe what they saw to, like a police sketch artist, and they can come out with a face. Other people are not going to be able to describe a face, but they can look at mug shots and say, yes, this one, it looked like him. No, not like that. And likewise, some people can't describe what they saw so accurately like an artist might, but with Rabban Gamliel's, figures, his sketches, they would be able to say, yeah, it was like this and not like that. That's the Mishnah. Gemara. And the Gemara asks, and is it permitted to create these types of forms? Isn't it written, Exodus 20:19, you shall not make with me gods of silver or gods of gold, which is interpreted as teaching, you shall not make images of my attendants, i.e., those celestial bodies that were created to serve God, including the sun and the moon. Because in the ancient world, in the pagan world, there were many sun worshipers, moon worshipers, star worshipers. It became prohibited to make, figures, carved bas-relief, woodcuts, etc., of the heavenly bodies, because it could be interpreted as creating an idol. And obviously idolatry is absolutely prohibited. Abaye said, the Torah prohibited only the images of those attendants, right? The attendants are the heavenly bodies, the stars, the moon, the sun, etc. The Torah prohibited only the images of those attendants with regard to which it is possible to reproduce an item in their likeness. Since it is impossible for anyone to reproduce the sun and the moon, the prohibition does not apply to these objects. As it is taught in a Baraisa, a person may not construct a house in the exact form of the sanctuary, meaning in the Holy Temple, nor a portico in the exact form of the entrance hall of the sanctuary, nor a courtyard that exactly mimics the temple courtyard, nor a table corresponding to the table in the temple, the showbread table, right, where the 12 loaves of bread were kept every week, nor a candelabrum, a menorah, corresponding to the menorah in the temple. However, one may fashion a candelabrum of 5 or 6 or 8 lamps. Why? Right? Why, if you can't make a menorah, do we have Hanukkahs? Well, the Hanukkah, which celebrates the 8-day miracle of Hanukkah, right? It has 4 lights on each side, and then that center light a little higher to celebrate the 8 nights of Hanukkah. We have Rosh Kislev coming up this Friday, and then we begin Kislev, the month of miracles, which contains Hanukkah. The menorah that was, the gold menorah that stood in the sanctuary when the temple was standing had 3 branches on each side and a center one of the same height as the other 6. So you can make a menorah that looks like a Hanukkah with 9 lights, but you can't make one with 7 lights that is made of beaten gold and looks like the holy menorah that stood in the temple. Right away, if you've been to Israel, you've been to Jerusalem, you're like, well, wait a minute, they made one. Right? Now, I suppose they got some kind of a heter, a permission to do that because it's for educational purposes. I don't know. I'm just speculating as I'm reading this. But here we're reading, You can make a candelabrum of 5 or of 6 or of 8 lamps, but one may not fashion a candelabrum with 7 lamps, even if he constructs it from other kinds of metal rather than gold, as in exigent circumstances, the candelabrum in the temple may be fashioned from other metals. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says, also one may not fashion a candelabrum of wood in the manner that the kings of the Hasmonean monarchy fashioned it. When they first purified the temple, they had to prepare the candelabrum out of wood, as no other material was available. Since this candelabrum is fit for the temple, it is prohibited to fashion one of this kind for one's self. Last paragraph, and then I'm going to be done. So if you have questions or comments, get it in. The other sages said to Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, from there you seek to bring a proof? There, the branches of the candelabrum were comprised of spits, shipudim, of iron, and they covered them with tin. Later, when they grew richer and could afford a candelabrum of high-quality material, they fashioned them from silver, and when they grew even richer, they fashioned them from gold. Still, Abaye proves from this Baraisa that the prohibition against forming an image applies only to items that can be reconstructed in an accurate manner. And since this is not possible in the case of the moon, Rabban Gamliel's forms were permitted. We got to this question because Rabban Gamliel would question witnesses, and he had these forms of the sun and moon. Presumably they were like not pictures, they were but like almost sculptures. And there was this concern, could those be considered prohibited idols? But they're not really approximating the sun and the moon in any significant way. And that's why they are permitted. Is there anything about that? No. And that is where we're going to leave off. Although I'll read a couple of related halachas. Right? What is the law? The structure of a candelabrum. It is prohibited to fashion the form of the candelabrum with 7 stems. And this applies even if the form has no cups, knobs, and flowers, and even if it is not the same size as the candelabrum in the temple. Furthermore, even if one changes the order of the stems and their shape, it is prohibited due to the uncertainty with regard to the correct form of the candelabrum. So now I'm really curious, if that's the halacha, why is there this big gold candelabrum in Jerusalem that, is sort of like to give you a sense of what the original one was like? And an image of 4 faces, it is prohibited even to draw the 4 faces of the Chayos in the heavenly chariot, meaning in Ezekiel's vision. The Gemara, we're not going to read it today, but it goes on to discuss, well, okay, now that you're talking about you're not allowed to make images that resemble, holy items because it could be considered idolatry. In Ezekiel's vision, he saw these angels, right, that had 4 faces that were kind of ever-turning faces. What was it? I think a man, an eagle, an ox, and a lion. That's my memory. But you can't render those 4 faces. On the other hand, one may fashion the forms of animals, birds, and fish, as well as trees and grass, both as pictures and as protruding figures. What about the face of a person? It is prohibited to fashion the protruding figure of a person. Some are stringent about even a non-protruding figure in accordance with the opinion of the Ramban. Others say that this prohibition applies only to a complete form, whereas an incomplete form, for example, one with missing limbs or a head without a body, is not prohibited. Some authorities claim that the custom is to be lenient in this regard, whereas others write that one who is stringent in this matter will be blessed. You probably won't find too many religious Jewish sculptors of the human form, according to what we just read. Okay, let's go to questions and comments. Sharon, why is seeing it through thin clouds not actually seeing the moon? It was seen directly just through thin clouds. I don't know. I don't know. It seems to me like you're right. But I guess the concern would be that occasionally what you might see is through a veil of clouds, something behind it that reflects the light of the moon. Like it could be a small cloud above the clouds and you think you're seeing the moon through the clouds, but you're actually seeing another cloud. That might be the concern, and that's why they're saying you need to see the moon in an uninterfered manner. Sharon, are the witnesses financially compensated at all? It must have been costly to leave their work and take the time away to do this. I think not. I don't think they're paid, but what we saw yesterday is that they come and wait in that courtyard, and then the sages decreed that they could walk all around Jerusalem. But in that courtyard where they're hanging out, it was like the green room, right? Of like when you're on a talk show. And they had, lots of food and drink and a nice party. They have a nice arrival lounge for the witnesses. And finally, are these candelabra rules still in place? I have a silver 7-branch menorah from Israel, fashioned for Israel's 50th anniversary. Right, and I mean it's part of the national seal of Israel, and that's why we see those candelabra all the time. I'm unclear. I'm unclear of what that is. I suspect that there's some kind of a carve out for that. It's not really trying to approximate the candelabra of the temple, and somehow it's understood and permitted. I don't know. I haven't done the research on this question. Sharon, if you learn more about it, please let me know. I know your curiosity is sparked now, and please report back to us. All right, that's what I've got for us today. I got to run, and Nina and I are going to an event to support a friend of ours. And so it's been great learning with you, and with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow night at the regular time, 6 p.m. Pacific, for page 25 here in Tractate Rosh Hashana. Aren't these pages rich? They're just wonderful, so colorful. Have a great night.